August 31st, 2020, Village of Woodridge Plan Commission meeting. It's a specially called meeting tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone that's present on Zoom and who may be checking in on the live stream as well. And before we get to our agenda, I'd like for Madam Secretary to call the roll. Nancy, if you could unmute yourself.
Baylog here, Cortez.
Here.
Gaspar.
Here.
Handel Kanunen.
Here.
Girag.
Here.
Sealander.
Here.
Presbyorka.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Plan Commission minutes from our last regular meeting on August 3rd, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes or make any changes?
Commissioner Gasper will motion we approve.
Commissioner Girag, second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Gaspar.
Aye.
Girag.
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Cortez.
Aye.
Handel Kanunen.
Aye.
Sealander.
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, minutes are approved. All right, our first case tonight is a consideration of a major amendment to preliminary PUD, lots 2 and 3, special use for a final planned unit development plan and plat for lot 2, preliminary and final plat, of consolidation of lots 2 and 3 at 3329 75th Street. The applicant is Ryan Companies, US Inc. We will have a public hearing tonight. So that's our first part of this case consideration, and I will get the public hearing started at this moment. So this agenda item is a public hearing of the Plan Commission convened for the purpose of considering a request for a major amendment to the preliminary plan unit development, preliminary and final plats of consolidation, and a special use permit for a planned unit development plan and plat for the outlots at Cedarhurst, located at the southwest corner of 75th Street and Route 53. The applicant is Ryan Companies US Inc., 309 North Water Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202. The applicant is seeking a request for a major amendment to the preliminary planned unit development for lots 2 and 3, preliminary and final plats of consolidation for lots 2 and 3, a special use permit for final planned unit development plan and plat for lot 2, together with certain deviations from the zoning ordinance and variations from subdivision regulations ordinance in order to construct a 2-story, 36,560 square foot medical office building. Notice of the public hearing on the matter to be considered was published in the Bugle on August 12th, 2020. A copy of the certificate of publication shall be made part of this hearing record as Village Exhibit A. Let the record reflect that all other notices required by law have been given. Is staff ready to present their report?
I am.
Okay, please proceed.
Do you want me to swear you in, Kim? Do you
Please.
swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Next slide. Sorry, let me just toggle this window about so I can see my screen better. So tonight's case consideration is for the subject property located at the southwest corner of Route 53 and 75th Street. And this particular subject property consists of 2 parcels, both of which are vacant. And the 2 parcels in question, it's not 1, 2, it's north and south of the subject property. And as Chairman Presbyorka mentioned, there is a plat of subdivision or plat of consolidation that's also being considered that would consolidate these previously subdivided subdivided lots into one lot, which would create the new Lot 2. So Cedarhurst of Naperville for this planned unit development would be Lot 1, or is Lot 1, and this would be the new Lot 2. Next slide, please. So the entire subject property, which I just spoke about, includes the Cedarhurst of Naperville, is approximately 6.16 acres and is located at the southwest corner of Route 53 and 75th Street. And just a little bit of background for the commissioners and the viewing public. A portion of the subject property, 1.43 acres to be exact, was formerly a Shell gas station, and that particular gas station at the time was annexed into Woodridge in 1991. The remaining 4.73 acres previously occupied by Zero Gravity, which to my understanding was a nightclub or gathering space for teens at the time, was annexed into the village in 2010. In 2016, for the initial approvals of Lot 1, or what we know as Cedarhurst of Naperville, the village board approved the following: a rezoning of the subject property from R1 residential and B3 high wind service district to the B2 community shopping district, a final plat of subdivision which subdivided this particular property into 3 lots, a special use for PUD for preliminary and final for Lot 1 only, and again, Lot 1 is Cedarhurst of Naperville, a special use for a private facility, that would have been for the Cedarhurst facility, and special use for a drive-through for lots 2 and 3. At the time, during this particular subdivision and preliminary PUD and final for Lot 1 approvals, it was anticipated at the time that the hope would be that the developer at the time would be able to attract a fast food facility with a drive-through and some sort of pharmacy with the drive-through component. And unfortunately, those types of developments never came to the village for fruition or for development on those prospective lots. Next slide. Additional backgrounds that a 4-story, 99,560 square foot, 50 foot in height, 100 unit assisted living and memory care facility was constructed. And again, that's on that Lot 1, which we all know it as Cedarhurst of Naperville. Next slide. Development proposal. The applicant Ryan Companies US Inc. is proposing to consolidate lots 2 and 3 in order to develop a 2-story, 36,560 square foot medical office building and associated site improvements. This request requires a major amendment to a previously approved preliminary PUD and plan and plat, as well as a special use is needed for a final plan unit development. This would be for the newly formed Lot 2 for the subject property. Next slide. And here is just a copy of the preliminary PUD. And as you can see here in this red box, this is what's being proposed of this larger plan unit development. And this is the Cedarhurst facility here. Next slide. Landscape plan. The applicant is required to provide 5,928 landscaping points per our village code. The applicant will exceed this requirement by 90 points, totaling 6,018 landscaping points, via the provision of a mixture of trees, shrubs, ornamental ground cover, and perennials. Please note there in asterisk that the foundation landscaping requirement is a point of relief from the code being requested. So again, commissioners and chairman, foundation landscaping is the ability to plant flowers of some sort along the foundation on all sides of a building. Due to some of the site constraints, they're not able to do 10 feet, but they're able to provide 5 feet of foundation landscaping. So they'll have 5 feet of landscaping around that foundation. And again, they're exceeding their landscape point requirement too, in a sense to make up for that inability to be able to provide 10 feet around the building. Outside of that, all the other landscaping requirements are being met. Next slide. Access. The subject property currently has access to Route 75th and Route 53, respectfully. Site access for the development will include 2 right-in and right-out driveways on 75th Street, as you can see here. And again, these are existing. And 1 full access onto Route 53. Again, this is existing. This is always taken care of during phase 1 for, again, right here, Cedarhurst of Naperville. Each driveway will have 1 inbound lane and 1 outbound lane. controlled by stop signs. These existing access driveways to 75th Street, County Highway 33, and to Illinois Route 53 are proposed to remain unchanged. Next slide. Some of the traffic impact conclusions. As you know, as a requirement, the applicant was required to have a traffic impact study created. And these are the conclusions that also our staff reviewed, engineering staff reviewed, excuse me. The proposed development is estimated to generate a low volume of vehicle trips during the peak hours. The intersection of Route 53 with 75th Street will continue operating at similar levels of service under future conditions. It has sufficient reserve capacity to accommodate the traffic projected to be generated by this proposed medical office building. And finally, the existing access system of Illinois 53 and 75th Street that will be shared with the Cedarhurst facility and will be adequate in accommodating the traffic projected to be generated by the proposed medical office building and will promote efficient on-site circulation. Next slide. Here is an excerpt as with respect to stormwater management from our third-party engineering review. Again, we use Bennett and Associates. And here's just a couple of snippets from the engineering memo dated August 6th. The improvement with respect to stormwater detention, the improvement was approved in phase 1 of the development when an estimated amount of impervious area. The proposed amount of impervious area falls within the limits previously approved for the site. Therefore, in accordance with section 15-72.8.1 of the DuPage County Stormwater and Floodplain Ordinance, which we're required to adhere to here at the village, stormwater detention is not required. As well as best management practices, a BMP pond exists on the site and will accept stormwater runoff from this portion of the development. Per the original plan of development agreement, a vortex type structure will be provided to treat the runoff. Next slide. Relief requested. The applicant is requesting 6 deviations from Title IX of the Village Code. Please note that this is a correction, Recording Secretary. The staff report showed 7, and there was a deviation, as well as commissioners. There is a duplicate deviation in your packet. There's technically only 6 deviations from the code being requested, and they are as follows. Side yard setback. They are requesting to reduce the exterior side yard setback to 16 feet from the required 30 feet to accommodate the required parking that encroaches into the side yard located along Route 53. Maximum lot coverage. To increase the maximum lot coverage to 78.59 from the required 50%. Please note that this same point of relief was provided for the Cedarhurst of Naperville development on Lot 1. And in those original approvals, maximum lot coverage was anticipated to be exceeded during those initial PUD approvals. Off-street parking. To reduce the required parking spaces from 183 that's required to 173 parking stalls. Although deficient per village code requirements, according to the applicant, the anticipated tenant for this proposed development has completed programming for their interior space needs and believes the provided parking is sufficient to meet their needs. Next slide. Building setback. To reduce the required building setback from any peripheral property line from 35 to 25 feet. This piece of relief is requested to allow the applicant to size the proposed medical office building in additional site improvements appropriately. We spoke about the foundation landscaping, reduce it from 10 feet in width to 5 feet in width, and signage location. During the previous PUD approvals, 2 monument sign locations were already approved. One along 75th Street, which Cedarhurst is currently utilizing, and one along Illinois Route 53. The applicant will be asking for an additional sign location so that they can have signage for their proposed medical office building. Next slide. So in the red here, 75th Street, and here were the 2 sign locations that was previously approved in 2016. The applicant is seeking relief from the code to allow a 3rd sign here in order for the proposed medical office building to be able to put their tenant information here. Being on the corner, they would like to have as much visual access as possible. And again, this is just approving the location. If this particular project is approved by the village board, the applicant would need to apply for a separate sign permit and adhere to all of the sign requirements with respect to size of the sign as outlined in the village code. I believe this is the last slide and completes staff's report, if I'm not mistaken, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Porter. The applicants will now present their application and explain the approvals being sought. So is that Mr. Pasco?
It is.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Real quick, I do need to swear you in, Mr. Pasco. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, first and foremost,
Kurt,
my
I'm
name is
sorry,
Kurt Pasco.
Kurt?
Yes.
Before you begin, I'm so sorry, Chairman, if I may. Kurt, are there any other individuals that you know will speak so that the recording secretary, Mrs. Harper, can swear everyone in, because we don't want to have to interject every time someone wants to speak? Is there anyone else on your team, whether they're via Zoom or in the room with you?
Yes, both in the room and on Zoom. So I'd recommend swearing the team in so we can answer questions without interruption.
Team
Okay.
members, please raise your right hand. For those that are in the corner that we can't see on the screen,
Yeah, come on over.
come on over so we can capture you on tape too. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Continue.
Thank you, everybody. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Thank you.
Peggy, do you have everyone's names from earlier? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Pasco. I am a developer with Ryan Companies. Before we proceed further, I would like to thank the village staff and commissioners for your time, effort, and dedication. We appreciate it. I'd also like to welcome all of the residents joining us virtually or who've taken the time to comment it. We appreciate that as well, and we look forward to being your neighbors. Tonight, I am pleased to present a new medical office building for Edward Elmhurst Health at the southwest corner of 75th Street and Illinois Route 53, next to Cedarhurst of Naperville. I'm joined here tonight by Mark Hoffman and Colin DeLoe from EEH, as well as Peter Plusqua and Kim Morgart from SEMCON. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Mark Hoffman from EEH to share a little bit more about the project.
Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it. I'm Mark Hoffman, the System Director for Real Estate and Ambulatory Development for Edward Elmhurst Health. I too would like to echo Kurt's sentiments, thanking the Commission as well as the village to the opportunity to talk to you about what we feel is a very exciting project, both for Edward Elmhurst Health as well as the village of Woodridge. So in brief and in short, medical care is trending to the outpatient ambulatory sector. And in response to this, Edward Elmhurst has developed similar types of facilities in our primary and secondary service areas. We've done a number of these projects with Ryan Companies. They have been located in surrounding suburbs such as Bolingbrook, Oswego, Plainfield, Naperville, Elmhurst, Hinsdale, Oak Park, and have been developed in a similar manner to this. Our sweet spot for a project such as this is a 30 to 40,000 square foot building that contains medical office to support physicians as well as hospital ancillary services. This particular project is very similar. The first floor will be all hospital-based services to include imaging, a walk-in clinic, laboratory services, and physical therapy. And the upstairs or second floor of the site will support medical office, primary care physicians, obstetrics and gynecology, physiatry, neurology, general surgery, and orthopedics are all specialties that are essentially planned for this particular location. I think it's important to note, as I think Kurt alluded to before, this particular project, similar to work we've done successfully elsewhere. The branding of the building is important to Edward Elmhurst Health because it helps people recognize that they are presenting to an Edward Elmhurst building. Additionally, we have worked with all of our end user departments in terms of programming for this particular site and have come to the conclusion that the parking that is available to us is adequate to support our needs. Happy to answer any questions that the commission has and additional comments later. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. And we'll be around after our short presentation as well to answer any questions you might have. My presentation will be pretty quick. Kim did a great job hitting on the past of the site and our requested variances, so I won't waste any time going through those in detail. She did mention the previous concept that was considered in the original PUD approval. I have that up on site. As you can see, it did contemplate 2 retail buildings, both with a drive-through, and our proposed site plan today is shown with a 2-story medical office building. And you'll see
you
that
don't
we
need to share your screen. We can't see
You have
anything.
to share your screen.
The green button down at the bottom.
There we go. Is it back?
No, once you hit share screen, then you need to, there you go. Now, there you go.
Jeez. Backing up a quick step. On screen is the original retail concept that Kim had noted that was considered with the original PUD. Our proposed site plan replaces both of those buildings with a single building, a 2-story medical office building. Now you'll note that we've set the building back from both Illinois Route 53 as well as 75th Street. The main patient entrance is on the north facing elevation, while there is also employee parking and a separate employee entrance in the rear. Again, copying Kim, access already exists and was constructed as part of the Cedarhurst of Naperville development. Regional detention exists off-site, and we are providing BMPs upstream of the pond prior to the discharge into the regional detention. On a landscaping note, we looked at the site plan and throughout the planning process considered no less than 5 or 10 options for this site and landed on this site plan because of the benefits it offered by distributing parking around the building. From a landscaping perspective, the smaller pods of parking maximize landscape islands and also eliminates large expansive asphalt surfaces. And in doing so, helps to visually break up the parking that's required for this property. The proposed design increases the green space percentage as well as the tree count and shrub count over the 2-building retail concept that was previously considered. Importantly, as our design does not have a drive-through, the elimination of the drive-through provides ample opportunity to increase foundation landscaping and plantings where we no longer have asphalt abutting the building. As this highlight shows, our 70 trees are scattered throughout the site with a particular emphasis along that western property border where we are adjacent to Cedarhurst of Naperville. Regarding the signage, Kim again spoke about this at length. Cedarhurst does have a dedicated sign as indicated by the arrow in blue that is in front of their building. We are requesting 2 signs, one in orange and one shown by the green arrow. Specifically, as our proposed signage elevations show, the Illinois Route 53 sign is proposed to be a 3-tenant sign. The 3 proposed tenants are Cedarhurst of Naperville, Empower Me Wellness, and Edward Elmhurst. Empower Me Wellness is a therapy provider that is currently located in the existing Cedarhurst building and is not an affiliate of EEH. So out of that allowed sign with the current approvals, EEH has pretty limited visibility with only one of the 3 panels. As such, we're requesting the second sign along 75th Street. Importantly, the development will draw patients from all directions. The 75th Street sign will help draw patients arriving from the west into the parking lot. We have a very large building setback from 75th Street, and the Cedarhurst facility, as Kim noted, is a 4-story building. So the sign that we're requesting will be visible much earlier to drivers compared to the clinic itself. The 75th Street sign will be critical to EEH's wayfinding and success at this location. Traffic, again, kudos to Kim. She already hit on this, but we know that traffic is an important topic, and our engineers studied the potential impacts of this development. We also included the traffic that could be generated by the proposed senior living facility across the street at the southeast corner of the intersection. As Kim noted, the existing access system is adequate to support the development and has adequate on-site circulation. Additionally, the intersection of 75th Street and Illinois Route 53 will continue to operate at a similar level of service and has sufficient reserve capacity to handle the additional traffic. Importantly, knowing that traffic is a concern, medical office is projected to generate significantly less traffic than other potential land uses for this location. A comparison of our proposed site plan versus the 2 retail buildings in the original concept shows that this development could reduce the traffic generated by up to 40% compared to 2 retail facilities with drive-throughs. As you can see in the lower right, on a daily basis, that's upwards of 2,000 trips a day, a reduction compared to that original concept. So we think that is significant. Overall, we believe that a healthcare development at this location is the best use for the property. It maintains the highest level of quality that the village commands and is also an excellent complementary and adjacent use to the existing Cedarhurst of Naperville facility. So with the village's support, we intend to break ground on this development this fall, and patients could see their providers as soon as next summer. So with that, again, appreciate you taking the time this evening to consider our presentation, and our team is here to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Is anybody else on your team making any comments at this time?
Not this time, no.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we will now accept both questions and comments from the public in the following order. First, those who elected to speak in person at the Village Hall, which Director Porter, I believe there are none. And then second, those who elected to join us virtually. And then finally, staff will enter those comments received ahead of time into the record. So Director Porter, do we have anybody who is signed up to speak with us live on Zoom?
And Phil, did you have anyone?
No, we have nobody joining us this evening via Zoom for comments.
Okay. Then are there any comments you received ahead of time that we need to read into the record?
Yes, Chairman, I have 2. Peggy, do you need to swear me in to read these in?
Sure. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank
The first comment received is a letter that we received from Dover Development, and it states, "My organization, through its affiliate entity Cedarhurst of Naperville Real Estate LLC, is the owner of lots 2 and 3 of Cedarhurst subdivision. We're also the owner of lot 1 of Cedarhurst subdivision, which now contains Cedarhurst Senior Living, a 110-unit assisted living and memory care community. In February 2019, we entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Ryan Companies US Incorporated for the sale of lots 2 and 3. Since that time, we have been working closely with Ryan Companies with respect to the development of the property. Ryan Companies is a highly regarded developer of medical property, and we are excited to welcome their medical project as a neighbor to Cedarhurst Senior Living. Our residents at Cedarhurst Senior Living rely heavily on medical services in the Woodridge community and surrounding areas. Ryan Company's development is a perfect complement to Cedarhurst. It will attract prospective Cedarhurst residents to our location, which will help Cedarhurst continue to thrive. The services provided by the project will be a valuable convenience for our residents and staff. The new development will be an attractive addition to the corner of 75th Street and Highway 53 and will present numerous opportunities for our residents and staff to collaborate with medical providers with respect to improved senior care. Please accept this letter as authorization for Ryan Companies and Kurt Pascoe, on behalf of Ryan Companies in particular, to submit such documents as necessary for the entitlement of lots 2 and 3 to be developed for the purpose of a medical facility, including without limitation, documents necessary to amend the existing PUD and prior development approvals for Cedarhurst Senior Living. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. Jordan Dorsey, Dover Development. The second letter is from the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, and it states, the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County recently received a notice of public hearing for Ryan Company's petition regarding a major amendment to a PUD, plats of consolidation, and a special use permit for a final PUD in order to construct a medical office building at the above referenced property. We appreciate receiving timely notification of such requests that may have an impact on Forest Preserve District property, and we thank you for the opportunity to comment. Forest Preserve District staff have reviewed the information provided by the village and have the following comments. The Forest Preserve District is concerned that according to the site plans, there is no proposed stormwater detention facility to contain the stormwater runoff, and the stormwater is being routed to the small BMP basin located on the property immediately to the west. This will concentrate runoff from 6 acres of developed property into the small BMP basin, which is only 13 inches deep, that only drains via a perforated underdrain. If the BMP basin could not contain this additional stormwater runoff, it will result in excessive discharge onto Forest Preserve District property. As a result, debris, fertilizers, pesticides, and chemicals from the parking lot will be carried directly into the floodplain and wetlands. It is requested that the village confirm that the additional impervious surface would not require a stormwater basin for the proposed development. The Forest Preserve District recommends the use of permeable pavers and increased green space to allow for greater filtration of water into the ground, thereby reducing the amount of runoff. The Forest Preserve District requests the opportunity to review plans should changes be made as the project proceeds. Please consider this as the Forest Preserve District's request to have this letter read and entered into the public record at the 8/31/20 Plan Commission meeting. Signed, Kevin Stowe, Land Preservation Manager. And Chairman, that does conclude the comments received.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the plan commissioners as part of the, or to the public presentations that were made, either by staff or by the applicant?
Would staff want, would the applicant want to answer the questions from that last letter?
It's a good start.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Actually, see, Commissioner, I actually have the information here in front of me. If you want, I can provide that answer.
It's up to the chairman.
Why don't you give it a shot, Kim?
Basically, as stated in my presentation earlier, our engineers have reviewed that and has determined that the impervious surface area is not being increased. Based on a review of the previous approvals, the detention was not required on site. The proposed development at the time was the proposed development in the full build out conditions, which will be all of the parcels, will result in an increase of 21,501 square feet of impervious area. In accordance with the DuPage Countywide Stormwater and Floodplain Ordinance, the increase in impervious area is less than the requisite 25,000 square feet. Therefore, site runoff storage, stormwater detention is not required. However, on-site best management practices, BMPs, are required, which are proposed on-site at the southern and northwestern edge of the site. This was information provided in the initial approvals in 2016 for the Lot 1 Cedarhurst development. And as I read earlier in my presentation, the engineers have reviewed the proposed development and has determined that the impervious area that's being proposed will not exceed what is listed in the DuPage County-wide stormwater and floodplain ordinance.
Phil, could you please put up on the screen the slide you had that showed both developments? If you don't mind, just to clarify.
The one that had the
Carter Staters. Yeah, the one that
had
shows
the previous approvals.
Yeah, the one that shows the the one that shows the BMP pond as well.
Sure, Kurt, I believe that was actually yours that you had before that first one.
Sure. Bear with me as I need to grant me. Thank you. Hopefully at this time my screen is shared.
Yes.
So this is the original site plan, and I will move the text. It shows the BMP stormwater detention basin that was designed, constructed, and placed in a public easement as part of the Cedarhurst of Naperville development. And it contemplated a certain impervious coverage for the developments of lots 2 and 3. And as noted, our proposed site plan has less impervious surface than what was considered in this site plan. So the stormwater detention and associated facilities have adequate capacity to meet the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance. And then in addition, we have a mechanical BMP on site.
Can you explain what the mechanical BMP is?
I will turn that over to Kim Morgart from SEMCON, who can answer that much more detailed than I.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so at the southwest corner of the proposed parking lot here, kind of down by where the trash enclosure is. So all of the storm sewer that runs through the medical office building parking lot area comes down to that point at the southwest corner and will go through a BMP system that's inside the last catch basin down there. It's designed and manufactured by Contech, and it is a Vortec style separator. So it will help filter out the oils, the hydrocarbons, any garbage, a lot of those chemicals that we wanted to keep out of the system prior to discharge into that vegetated basin. So yeah, that filter, those chemicals and everything will float, and they can come in and clean that out periodically as needed. And that will help preserve, you know, the life and livelihood and how those plantings and everything functions in the downstream BMP basin that's already been constructed.
Thank you. So Kurt, will there be any impervious pavers in lot 2, or everything is just going to be solid asphalt?
Is proposed to be asphalt. There's a couple strong reasons not to use permeable pavers. One, from an operational perspective for medical clinics, that's an undesirable surface finish, particularly dealing with patients that might have either some mobility challenges or patients that are of older age, both of which are higher trends in the patients and clients visiting this facility. And secondly, as Kim noted at the beginning in the summary of the past of this development, it was a gas station at the time of annexation back in the 90s. And there are groundwater restrictions on the property as set forward by the IEPA. And it would not be considered a good practice to encourage permeable surfaces on a former gas station.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Is In lines of the coverage, the 78%, was the original design about the same or less? I mean, more? Is that what
The
you're saying?
original design was, so came in, looking at the previous approvals, came in at 75.54%.
So this is actually it's gonna have more coverage, which would require more runoff. But I mean, percentage, small percentage. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I can turn that over to our engineers. I believe our request was for 75% impervious. And Peter or Kim, perhaps you can answer me on that one.
There have been, so my coverage came in at 78, but there have been several plan iterations that have changed. So Peter, I mean, again, these plans are not finalized, won't be final until, you will provide all final plans prior to going to the village board. It was already anticipated and understood in the original approvals for this part one of this lot one, which is Cedarhurst, that lots 2 and 3 would have larger anticipated building coverages. Previously, it would have come in at 75.54% and 78.63% respectfully. So these maximum building coverages were already anticipated by the village board in 2016.
Okay. So it was. Can you tell the board, the commission, exactly why we have that coverage standard?
It is for maximum building coverage, just to ensure that you're not covering all of your parcels with pervious surfaces, but PUDs allows flexibility in design and allows for that ability to provide relief from the code. And so it was already anticipated during the development of Cedarhurst of Naperville, whom also had a little bit larger building coverage approved and received that relief in 2016. It allows for that level of flexibility for just additional site improvements when deemed necessary.
Right. So are we required to accept what was in 2016, or we can ask for something different than that?
Well, this is what's being proposed, and it was also in the approval document that it was anticipated that the maximum building coverage was going to come in high.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, we were going to have it high, so it's no different, really. I just trying to learn for myself why we have and one of the things I think that the forest preserve is suggesting is there's this lot is not going to, it's going to dump all of its water somewhere else. It's not going to absorb hardly any of its own water because it's covered with asphalt. So
I'm sorry, one of the statements, one of the sentences, if I'm not mistaken, that was contained in the Forest Preserve's letter was if the impervious surface is exceeding the limit. Was that correct, Phil?
Yeah, let me pull up the exact language again, but it's to that effect. Yeah, so basically it was a comment that led into a question, and the question, Kim, as you rightly said, was it is requested that the village confirm that the additional impervious surface would not require a stormwater basin for the proposed development. So yeah, my understanding of that is that the Forest Preserve interpreted the plans correctly in that there was going to be no additional stormwater detention or retention required, and they were just asking for further clarification on whether that was an oversight or whether that was something that was considered manageable in this case.
Yes, and prior to this meeting, the Forest Preserve was contacted to inform them that this impervious surface that is being proposed for this development is under the stormwater requirements for DuPage County.
And does the storm, do they still have a say on this, the storm, DuPage County?
We adhere to whatever rules that they tell us.
Okay.
They have ultimate say.
So do they review it, or do they, or they just assume we followed the rule?
Our engineers review, our third-party engineer reviews any previous approvals, and as well as our civil engineers that are employed with the village and our third-party engineers all review concurrently to ensure that we are in compliance with the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance, which is one of the strictest, if not strictest, ordinances in the country.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's great. So there's, okay, that's great. The extra sign, how often do we allow it for extra signage like that? Is that a frequent request, and do we do it often?
It just depends on the development. Again, PUDs provide that level of flexibility. We did provide some signage allocations for, if I'm trying to find an apples to someone, apples comparison, Amita Health may not receive an additional monument sign, but we did provide them with some relief on some larger signage, if I'm not mistaken, Phil.
Yeah, so Amita Health got recently, actually within the past year, they had a major amendment to a PUD approved, and the trigger for that was additional relief being requested as it pertained to wall signage over and above for their medical office. Specifically, that was because they are, as you know, a medical office that's in a non-traditional medical office building taking over a former grocery store. Off the top of my head, similar requests that have come in recently that have required relief for signage. The Hudson Plaza PUD actually has 2 signs, which is unusual for a shopping center, and that was relief that was granted by this commission and the village board. And then additionally, the proposed new Starbucks, if I'm not mistaken, actually has more signage than would be allowed over there at Woodgrove Festival, and that is because I think, as was discussed at the time, in a if we're talking apples to apples, the similar situation there, in that particular tenant of Starbucks, they typically do not prefer to share signage, as would be happening in this case with a multi-tenant sign. They prefer to have a standalone signage. So that's probably I would say, one of the closest comparisons in recent memory, at least.
And they're going to have signage on the building. Is this elevation you put up last, is that fairly accurate to what's going to be on there?
Okay, you're on mute if you're going to answer that question.
Kurt, you're on mute.
Kurt, you're muted.
Sorry about that. My keyboard shortcut stopped working on me. So the question is whether the signage elevations are what's being proposed.
Is that the
building elevation?
Building elevations. Yes, this is a rendering of the proposed building. It is a architectural precast building with brick inlay in it. Interesting to note is that the manufacturers literally take bricks and put them into the precast panel. So what you see is the brick itself. This is just a faster construction method while maintaining the aesthetics of a brick building. Also, interestingly, to show, this isn't a rendering, this is a photo of a recent clinic that we completed with Edward Elmhurst Health in downtown Elmhurst. And one thing that we like to do to continue the brand is that the brick we use on these facilities is the same brick that was used to construct Elmhurst Hospital, which you know with the large prairie-style architecture. So zooming in on the details of the building, you can see that this is actually a brick facade. And to maintain consistency across the system, it's, again, the same brick from the Elmhurst Hospital campus itself. So from a finished perspective, I would say that the photo on screen is very representative of the look and the style that we are going for here at this location.
Very attractive.
Please note that any of this wall signage will still need to go through a separate sign permitting. So hopefully what they would be requesting on their buildings will meet our code requirements so that they will be allowed to have this particular wall signage on the proposed building if approved.
And we've changed our code to allow it on 2 sides if there's a road there, right?
Right. So in cases like this, and I have that piece of code pulled up right now, just anticipating a question like that. But yes, the code does allow signage on a maximum of 2 facades that abut either a public street or private drive aisle. So yes, in this case, we would be allowing it on 2 facades. But again, one thing that staff ends up dealing with a lot with sign contractors is you are not permitted the maximum square footage per facade. It would be divided between the 2. So if you do end up selecting 2 sides, you end up with a smaller sign on each side of the building than you would if you just did a larger sign on one side. So we do try and mediate some of that and mitigate some of the impacts of those larger signs.
So I mean, the only question is, do they need another monument for the board to think about when they have two signs on the building and one monument? But I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioner Cortez, the setback variance, so it was 35 feet, the normal is 25 foot they're requesting. Which side is that on? Or is it on multiple sides?
That is just on the west side of the building, adjacent to Cedarhurst.
Okay, so that's this, so that's the setback from the property line between the Cedarhurst property and this property.
Correct.
We'll have the correct setback on the other side, on the other sides towards 53 and towards the south property line, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
I forgot one question that I know the board's going to ask. What's our vacancy rate in Woodridge on similar structures? I assume office.
Kurt, do you have any similar facilities in Woodridge currently? And if so, would you know the vacancy rate?
We do not, and I do not know the vacancy rate. I do know that for these types of outpatient facilities, as Mark Hoffman was noting, having that sweet spot between 30 and 40,000 square feet. The trends in the healthcare world are to generate some efficiency and some benefits by co-locating these services all together. And nationally, the trend is certainly consolidation of smaller spaces in the 1 to 5,000 square feet into larger outpatient clinics like what we're proposing here today.
And then, Commissioner, just to answer your question on overall office vacancy rates within the village, according to our 2019, end of 2019, beginning of 2020 economic development report, overall the village is at a 16.1% office vacancy rate, which is a downward trend. Our offices are getting more and more rents at a daily basis, and so 16.1% in Woodridge, and that's below average for the area. So other municipalities in the suburban area trended around an 18.6% vacancy rate. So our vacancy rate is better than most.
Thank you, Phil. I do have a question about the contours, the elevation contours of this property. So Kurt, if I remember correctly, the lot, the entire property, lots 1 and 2, the proposed lot 2, slopes from the northeast to the southwest in general. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So is there, I think I remember something in the plan about a retaining wall and a guardrail. Can you point out where on this illustration, where those come into play and where the elevation changes are?
Yes, and bear with me as I try to live stream some drawing here, but the retaining wall wraps around this lower corner as the low point of the site near the stormwater detention is here in the southwest corner of our site. So even existing grades today, the site sits above the existing access drive that travels from Cedarhurst to Illinois 53.
Okay. And the parking lot, those parking stalls immediately to the west of that north-south yellow line you just drew, are those there existing today?
A portion of these are existing, and maybe a third, and the other 2/3 are, if I recall correctly, land banked through an agreement between Cedarhurst and the village.
Okay. And where's your property line relative to that yellow line that you drew?
Property lines several feet west of the retaining wall.
Okay, so in essence, you've tried to move your building as far west as you can on your plateau that you're building on the property. So my question then comes into the deviations you're asking for on the setback on the Route 53 side. I think it was 16 feet instead of 30 feet, or Kim, I may have had those numbers incorrect, but I do recall that there was a relief being granted or requested, I should say, on how much setback there is from Route 53.
Yes. For this particular setback, the setback line is there. In essence, 30 feet, the building is 30 feet from Route 53. The issue is that technically you're not supposed to have anything in your setback line. The parking stalls are in the setback, which is why they need relief. But the building is set back 30 feet.
Gotcha.
It's just
So
technicalities in planning.
So my question comes in is that if there ever was a need to make improvements or expand Route 53, for instance, putting in a second left-hand turn lane, which now I think there's only one going northbound, where would that extra land come from? Because on the east side of Route 53, you've got the gas station right there.
No, I'll actually
That
turn this
would
over.
result-
Go ahead, Kim.
No, go ahead, Kurt.
I'll turn that over to Peter from SEMCON because they were the civil engineers for the Cedarhurst property as well. And I believe that through that process, IDOT reviewed the proposed development and, if I recall correctly, required a right-of-way dedication at the time of Cedarhurst development. But Peter, if you could hop on and confirm or prove me wrong.
Yes, IDOT originally took land from the gas station and the previous nightclub when they improved the intersection of 75th and 53. There was a roadway easement for that taking. As part of the Cedar development, they requested us to dedicate that right of way, which we did. And they reviewed and approved our entrance along Route 53. At that time, they did not mention any possible improvements for additional left turn lane on 53 going westbound on 75th. At that time, they approved our plans with our proposed access point and with the right-of-way dedication. And if I missed anything, Kim Morgard, as part of the permit approval of that, please let us know. Thanks.
I'm looking at the approvals as well, and that is exactly what happened during the initial development of Cedarhurst. So they've already provided land to IDOT.
Okay, and so none of those parking stalls that are in that northeast corner of the property are in that right of way?
No.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Okay, all right, any other questions from plan commissioners? Okay, do the applicants desire to make a brief summation? Kurt, if you're on mute, we can't.
Yes, I'd love to. Again, as before, we appreciate you taking the time and effort to review our plans in detail and discuss them here during a special meeting. And kudos to village staff for working to make that possible as well. We are excited about the development. I know EEH is excited about the development. I think it's going to be a beautiful building and a welcome addition to the village that meets your highest of standards and will be a very productive business member and community asset for years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Plan Commission will be considering its recommendation at its regular meeting this evening. That is not going to be a public hearing and no statements or testimony will be permitted. At this time, I'd like to ask the Plan Commissioners for a motion to close the public hearing.
John Sealander, so moved.
Bartel, second.
Okay, Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Sorry, I can't get off mute. Who seconded?
Cortez,
Cortez?
Yep.
All right. Sealander,
Aye.
Cortez,
aye.
Baylog, aye. Gaspar,
Aye.
Handel Noonan,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
That concludes our public hearing. Now enter into Plan Commission discussion. Commissioners did not have a chance to ask any questions during the public hearing. Any comments or discussion points you'd like to make at this time? Or questions?
I'm good.
I'm
Okay.
good too.
All right. Then Director Porter, if you wouldn't mind maybe reviewing the decisions that need to be made and the recommendations.
Yes, so the Plan Commission must make 3 motions. So there's a motion should be made to adopt the findings of fact for plan unit development, in parentheses, your major amendment, as contained in Exhibit A and as modified by the Plan Commission as saw fit. The second would be an additional motion to adopt the findings of fact for a special use permit for a final plan unit development plan and plat as contained in Exhibit I or as modified by Plan Commission. And then we'll need a recommendation to the mayor and the village board of trustees, whether that's approval or denial, for a major amendment to the preliminary PUD for lots 2 and 3, a special use for a final plan unit development plan and plat for lot 2, and preliminary final plat of consolidation of lots 2 and 3. That will be subject to the adopted findings and to the following plans, as noted in the report.
Thank you. And those motions are listed on page 128 of our packet tonight's meeting. And the findings of fact, I think this is a record, on page 263 in our packet.
This is Commissioner Girag. I'll make a motion to adopt the finding of fact for a plan unit development major amendment as contained in Exhibit H and as modified by the Plan Commission.
I think you need a second.
Nancy will second. Girag,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Cortez,
Aye.
Gaspar,
Aye.
Handel Noonan,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried. Baylog will make a motion to adopt the findings of fact for a planned unit development major amendment as contained in Exhibit H and with no modifications by the Plan Commission.
Gasper will second.
Baylog, aye. Gaspar,
Aye.
Cortez,
Aye.
Handel Noonan,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye. Okay, now we just need the recommendation to the village board.
This is Commissioner Handel Noonan. I'll recommend to the mayor and the village board of trustees approval of a major amendment to the preliminary PUD lots 2 and 3, a special use for a final plan unit development plan and plat for lot 2 and preliminary and final plat of consolidation of lots 2 and 3, subject to the adopted findings into the following plans A through G. And subject to the deviations from the zoning ordinance as outlined in the report and subject to the following conditions A through G as listed in staff's report.
I think you need a second.
Cortez, second.
Handel Noonan,
Aye.
Cortez,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Gaspar,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion carries to Kurt and the EEH team. Good luck on the rest of your proposal and journey.
Thank you much. We appreciate it.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is any other public comments for items that are not related to tonight's agenda. So Kim, Phil, did we receive anything?
We have not.
Nothing at this time, okay. Any discussion items from the commissioners or from staff?
I have a question about what other villages do. I having such large coverage, I said in my discussion that you lose the ability to absorb the water in there. And there were some good excuses, or not excuses, good feedback from the petitioner here, because yeah, we don't want that oil from the gas station going under. But have we ever, or do communities ever require some permeable surfaces when you're going to violate our coverage?
There are communities that have environmental departments. Some larger communities have missions and plans with respect to environmental sustainability. Some of them have green practices and ordinance that have been passed that will require pavers. We don't have any such ordinances or code rules in place to require that. With the understanding in 2016 that this the entire subject property, to include the Cedarhurst of Naperville, with the understanding and the anticipation of maximum building lot coverage being will be exceeding
No, that's why I
what
brought
is
it
in the
here.
particular code. It was anticipated for that, so that's why at the time the BMPs were put in place with the understandings that if those two buildings that were proposed on what was lots 2 and 3 respectfully, although they would have exceeded the building coverage, as long as they weren't going to exceed the impervious surface, because that's what matters, the BMPs and detention that are on site will be sufficient. Thankfully enough, the applicant came in and they are also right under the requirement. They do not exceed the impervious area that would trigger additional stormwater detention.
But it sounds, and just to add on, because it's a very interesting subject. It sounds like what the letter, the feedback we got was more or less a question asking us to respond to it. But it also sounds like if they wanted to say, you need to fix this or do something about it, they could.
No, the county was notified because they're in the 500 feet. They were notified the first time when Cedarhurst was put in place. I'm not sure if this particular individual who's with the Forest Preserve was a staff member there, if they have record of what was approved and what occurred and what they provided back in 2016. They can make a recommendation like anybody, but if we don't have any codes or ordinances that will require that, you know, that's the thing, is what can we legally require of anyone? And that's
so there's no
question.
codes or ordinances at the county level that override us.
No, we're our own individual home rule community. Outside of DuPage County stormwater ordinance that we must adhere to. The Forest Preserve's request is not a requirement
because it's the Forest Preserve, it's not the county. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Commissioner, I think to your point about if it was a question or not, I think the question was, are they requesting any relief from stormwater ordinances? And if they are, they would then request that the village wouldn't grant them that relief. But because there is no request for relief, we would have no means to enforce any additional stormwater measurements.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
And that could be additional. And then at that point, during that review process, if it was determined that the applicant would have exceeded the impervious area, then there would have been additional requirements placed upon the applicant by our staff.
Right.
Our third-party engineer to adhere to the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance.
Okay.
I'm just looking to the future of our community, and when we allowed large deviations from our code, I mean, part of this is for water. I mean, it's part of it's for water. I'm sure some aesthetics and for other reasons why we've said, hey, 50 is what is most, and then we go here at 78. So, I mean, it could be an easy way to fix it in the future. Say, well, make up the 28% more you're doing. Find 28% where you put approval permeable surface. Maybe the sidewalks are permeable. I don't know, but
Again, so this project should be seen as Commissioner Sealander as part 2 of a larger project.
yeah.
So again, during the part
I'm
1
not
of the
talking
particular
about this,
project.
but again, I'm not
So
talking
outside
about
of this project, if there was a new project that came in that was a site plan approval that was not connected to a PUD, that was not connected to something that had previous approval and anticipation of maximum lot coverage, then the conversation would be completely different. And
No,
staff
get it.
would have stopped that particular project in the review process. When I say stop, we've been working with the applicant to let them know that they would not be going before the plan commission without an abatement on how they're going to come down on the maximum building coverage. So this particular situation is different because this is a part 2 of a larger development, but moving forward, there have been tons of projects where we've required smaller building footprints because we did not allow them to go before the plan commission with larger maximum building coverages. So we get requests for maximum coverages, but you don't see them because we've already worked on it as professional staff. We've already dealt with that in-house prior to coming before you.
So you're stuck with the 4-year-old approval. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item is update of previous plan commission cases, and I almost hate to ask that question, but it's on the agenda. So Kim, any updates that you can share?
The previous plan village board consideration of the Lamont Road project was continued, and they will be reconsidering that particular case this Thursday at the upcoming village board meeting.
Thank you.
Is there any word on the car wash? My car is really dirty.
The car wash is working to start back up. They, when they were ready to start pulling permits, COVID happened.
Okay.
And so they did reach out to staff, and I believe staff initiated that in one of our AM reports. They are working to prepare to apply for building permits with the hope, as long as we don't have any crazy spikes, and hopefully with COVID and things don't begin to shut down, they are looking to resume preparing for those building permits. They did receive approval from the board to extend their special use permit because it expired technically this month. So they did get in another extension on their special use, and they are working to prepare their submittal for building permits.
That's awesome.
And that is for the Everclean proposed car wash that was previously recommended approval by this commission and ultimately approved by the board to be located at 6804 Route 53.
That covers previous cases? Thank you. Okay.
Yes, that completes my.
Then next time on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
And make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Drag second.
Sealander,
Aye.
Gerard,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Cortez,
Aye.
Gaspar,
Aye.
Hendel Noonan,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation tonight on another successful Zoom Plan Commission meeting.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Stay well.